COT's base of operations is right here at thecounciloftime.com. COT has no other outlet or venue. These are other folks who will rebroadcast. Anything COT does is by the main page here at thecounciloftime.com.
All right, are you guys curious about the topic tonight? Before I start that topic, I want to say something. You guys remember a few nights ago, right? Many of you were hot. We tracked down through sensors some of the processes that have been taking place over the last 6 days, and the heat that you're feeling, it should be dwindling now. Should not be as bad as it was. Shouldn't be as bad as it was. There was an effect. After looking at some of the sensory data, going from the atmosphere to some of the sensors, in coordination with a few universities, there was a caloric current that was increased about 98%. And you guys were actually feeling something akin to microwaves going through your body. So it was not, one of those phantom conditions or something like that. It had to do with our sun. The sun is it truly is the life-sustaining object in the sky. The sun is. And of course, when it cuts up and acts up in solar flares and CMEs, and in the last few days, we've had some discharges. But they were different. Very different. Their signature from these discharges were quite intense. As they intensified, it did increase the electronic field potential around the Earth. All right? And of course, that causes... Are you guys familiar with some of the old diode radios? Remember the little advertisement in the electronics books, if you were a nerd? And it said a radio without batteries. You guys remember that? From a Zener diode. A Zener diode radio. You guys familiar with that? What essentially happens is a Zener diode expresses a reverse piezoelectric effect, and that's how you pick up or hear radio signals. A crystal, a type of crystalline structure, exists within a Zener diode. So what happens is when it picks up radio waves, which is essentially an electronic potential, right? It causes a deformation effect in the diode itself, and the diode then responds, reacts, and you can hear sounds coming from it, actual, radio signals. You can also transmit that way with the opposite effect. So essentially in your body, the same effect was being felt. As the electronic potential around you increased, there were, based on your diet and based on minerals in your system, it caused a physical deformation of those metallics, I'm going to call them, in your system, causing your body temperature to rise. Right, so you felt that. And that was very slight. It's also, I believe, the reason why we're having these eruptions. Right? We're having these eruptions at the exact same time that the sun expressed its energy all over the Earth. Now, even tonight, we're having deep core readings that are quite disturbing right now. I mean, we've been having ancient volcanoes wake up all over the place, right? I'm exaggerating, of course. It's only about 3 or 4. Still, the point is, there's been an increased volcanic activity that will continue. The deep readings suggest that we're having, and of course there's a cycle with the absorption of radiation or energy from the sun to the Earth, which heats up the mantle and everything else. We're being overcharged, essentially, And this time, though, there are some pretty heavy readings. Very heavy readings. Which means we're going to have some greater deep rock activity, melting, so on and so forth, magma, discharges, moisture changes. There's some pretty sharp temperature variance from some of the sensors. Pressure is one of the major things, which makes me very prayerful about Italy, right? Italy. Africa has had its wake-up call likewise. But Africa is a good example of what could happen and what will happen all over the earth. Africa is an excellent example, right? Because in Africa, you're looking at an increased atmospheric conductivity event that was seems to be directly related, right, to the ionization effect that we were having due to solar flares and solar discharges. So get ready. You're in a time of epic change. I mean epic change. And from the data I'm looking at right now, which is from 2 minutes ago, it's updating every 2 minutes, we have some severe alarms going off all over the earth. That doesn't look good at all. Russia, likewise, its volcanoes have waken up. Of course, Indonesia, and that's an entire chain of volcanoes. But get ready for those effects. And it's funny, last night we were reading about the entire Earth, all the islands, right, land masses being moved out of their places. Ash is in the sky right now. Right? Right now it's in the sky. It's beginning to inundate the northern hemisphere. These volcanoes are not stopping. They're just cranking out ash. That will affect our climate further. Get ready for massive change. Massive change. If I were you guys, I would, I'm going to do my best to educate you with simple terms. I don't want to get nerdy as far as volcanoes go, because you can start speaking a lot of jargon that makes little to no sense to the average person, right? But to know the effects that are taking place, to have an understanding of them is good. Unfortunately, the indicators of these eruptions, right, is post-event, meaning when the Earth was disrupted, so were your bodies. That wasn't all that was disrupted. There were disruptions in the communications grid. There were disruptions in the power grid. There were mishaps, broken equipment. Other things were happening in the last 3 days, along with your bodies that rise in temperature in the middle of the night. So we've been having all that across the board. And it will increase as every time the sun goes on one of these cycles it's in right now. Expect those effects. And expect them with intensity. It is not comfortable. It's not, because can you imagine being in the middle of winter? All of a sudden, you're bundled up. It's very cold outside, but all of a sudden you begin to sweat. And you don't know why you're so hot. You start taking off your layers because you're actually hot. Then you look at everybody else and they're doing the same thing. Right? That's gonna give everybody a moment to pause. And they may not understand the interaction, right, of the sun with the earth, with the human body, and animals will go through the exact same thing. In fact, that night when you guys began to burn up, animals were disrupted, disturbed. I'm sure they didn't have a restful night either. Sure they didn't. But expect more of these cycles. Now, there is a caution to this. This type of activity often precedes massive shifts in humanity. Meaning, in the past, humanity has been disrupted and destroyed, where only remnants of that society were left over and over again. And it looks like This event that we're in right now, it's been leading up to it for some time, precedes the fall of nations. It precedes it. You can actually track the temperature swings. You can actually track the electrical flow. Some of the caloric currents in the earth by rock strata, studying the crystalline structure in rock strata. So you can actually see this historically. It's causing an effect. So I better get on my job to get get some of this algorithm out there to everybody so they can at least have some sort of warning. Because again, this could clearly be seen a week and a half ago. I did hear somebody say the Schumann resonance went dark. Did you guys hear that? Okay, that wasn't true. It didn't go dark. Maybe the sensors on the internet went dark, but the Schumann resonance stayed constant, unmoving. Sometimes, and it's a big caution for everybody out there in this, sometimes we're going to be careful not to rate reality based upon sensors that mankind has built, right? Because they did say it was a long blackout of the Schumann resonance, but it wasn't. It was not. You can actually devise a small receiver circuit to pick up the Schumann resonance anywhere you are, and you'll find out it's quite constant, non-moving. It's been that way for some time. It's not moved, not 1/1,000,000th of a hertz in either direction. So it's been pretty constant, very constant. But I can't say the same for some of the electronic devices that actually detect the Schumann resonance, right? Because I hear this sometimes, often. I hear, something is affected, the Schumann resonance, it's off. But I've never seen that. I've not seen that yet, right? If I do see it, I know what to expect, right? They had an experiment where they isolated people from the Schumann resonance. And that's not the only one. One of the highest, there's another effect outside of the Schumann resonance that really affects the human brain, right? And it is not the Schumann resonance. They had an experiment where they took people deep underground. And of course it was shielded. And they shielded people from all inbound frequencies, right? So everything was nullified. Upon taking away the frequency, Schumann resonance, and everything else, people went kabonkers. They did. They went nuts. Now, they restored all these sets of natural frequencies back stage by stage to see what the effects were. One of the most amazing things that happened was, in isolation from these frequencies, a person is anxious, paranoid, schizophrenic, all sorts of things begin to happen. But, and some people start to physically fall apart, right? Arthritis increases maybe 100-fold. People complain of headaches, there was vomiting, nausea, all sorts of things. But about 35 seconds in the restoration process, all of it was gone in a heartbeat. 35 seconds. It began to reverse. Can you imagine that? So if something happened to the Schumann resonance, all of us would know it. All of us would know it. We really would. The sad part, again, is we really need reliable data is one of the problems, right? Any mistake in the data, for example, say a device goes down, it can't report the Schumann resonance, and then somebody says, hey, we have a blackout on the Schumann resonance. It's not there. Something happened to it. If we base any further findings on that missing data, assuming that something has happened to the Schumann resonance, then we have a flawed approach, right, to extracting or forecasting what's next. So we need reliable data. Reliable data. And that's pretty hard to do sometimes, but we can do our best. When you have those hiccups and mistakes like SOHO, right, the solar observatories and some of these other satellites out there, they have glitches. They do. those who designed those craft call it noise, and they have filters for that. They don't pay attention to it, but sometimes it shows on the internet outside of those filters, and people see things that look quite convincing, but it was just noise. Because they have other probes to verify what these probes are saying. And they don't always, they don't always show the same data. Data verification is very important before it leaves the device. And sometimes, unfortunately, you cannot help but to have hiccups. When that happens, we don't want to base any life or death situation off flawed data. We need very good data, right? The only way I know to do that is for people to take it upon themselves. Those who know how to build these sensors from the ground up is to build these sensors from the ground up. To use their knowledge and skill sets for the sake of the whole. Because everybody else is capitalizing off these things. You better believe there's an agenda behind it. And the agenda is to keep the money flow going into their direction. Right? The information on the internet is leftover information. It's leftover. It's been filtered. Everything has been, all the interesting things have been taken out. So you get this bland data stream of nothingness, right? When the real information is far more interesting. Many anomalies are taken out. I mean, not just, we're not talking about data anomalies. We're talking about anomalies, like cubes and big spheres out there in space. They are scrubbed before you ever see them. Absolutely scrubbed. There's so much stuff out there to make your head swim, right? You'd have a different look on everything if you could see it for yourselves. And with some of the optics that we have, the raw data is spooky. And that, it is just spooky. It's not some data anomaly when it traverses based upon physics. If you saw a cube traveling and then it made a somewhat of an arc, a 25-degree arc, and it began to travel in a different direction, but the physics were perfect all the way through its turn, then you would say that's not some anomaly, right? Or if one of those objects would cast a shadow on something else, that's not an anomaly. Because those sensors do not have an ability to create some virtual reality image and then send it. That's not what's happening. So there are lots of interesting things. Unfortunately, humanity does not see that part of it, which is why that's very controlled. That's a very controlled part of these space agencies. They don't want just anybody working in that field because they don't know who's going to talk and who's not. They don't know that. These guys get paid an unreasonable amount of money. How can a person who validates images get paid what is it, $8 million a year just to validate images? Well, I'll tell you why. Because that same individual is going to see things that nobody else is going to see. They give this individual a high salary, so they keep their mouth shut, right? And if you were paid that much money per year, you'd keep your mouth shut too to keep the job, right? So some people get paid an obscene amount of money, and clearly that money is being paid so that they can remain loyal to the project, not compromising it, right? They do not allow low-level employees who are not making that type of money to even look at things like that, because they will go out and tell the world what they have seen. But if you get somebody with a healthy paycheck, and they know why they're receiving a healthy paycheck, they're going to remain loyal to that healthy paycheck, especially if they have a family. Right? That's how it works. That's the world we live in. Now, I can't say it's a bad thing, because if you show people things prematurely, you're going to mess up their lives. Right? Mess up your life. Let me give you a small example of how things can mess up your life. Suppose tonight, somebody makes an announcement from the White House and says, we're going to have 2 nuclear launches against an enemy nation in less than half an hour. Right? That's going to make your stomach turn over for some folks who really have an understanding of what that means. It will disrupt everything, although nothing has happened, right? Just the information alone can cause you to change your entire course of life. Do you understand? Right? So just by knowing something is possible. Knowing something is really out there, can alter your life in ways that you did not expect. And I'll tell you something, it is not easy to handle those things. That takes maturity. It really takes self-discipline, right? You really have to have your feet anchored in something or you will lose it. There have been lots of people in high positions who have lost it. There have been some people, have you ever known some senator or something running around, they want the information, right? I'm going to give you guys a real scenario. A senator who's running around, they really want the information. They're tapping this department, that department to get the information. All of a sudden, a day comes when that individual no longer even speaks about the subject. You ever notice that? That means that individual likely has been read in. Because when they're shown the truth, one of the first things they do not want to do is to tell anybody about it. They don't want to do that. They know how disruptive it can actually be. That's when they begin to understand. I personally believe that our president has been read in. I believe that. I fully believe he's been read in. When people talk, I study their facial features. I compare it to what they look like before, habits. When you do that for so many years, you begin to pick up on things. I am confident that he's been read in, and I'm confident he has a great concern about it. It altered him. When some people, when they're read in like that, they totally fall apart because they just upend their paradigm, that little peaceful picture they thought life was. It messes it up. Somebody says, what do you mean by read in? That means somebody was informed about something that was once a mystery. Somebody saw the truth. Somebody was exposed to the truth. And when you're exposed to the truth, normally that's when people fall apart, right? But I believe he's been read in, and I believe that that has happened on purpose. There's a motive behind it, and it won't be long until some of you will be read in. I can guarantee you it's going to change things as we know it. It will. It is not anything like Hollywood produced, though it's not going to cause the fallout you believe either. It's not. No, some will have heart attacks upon learning that the world is a little bit different than what they thought. But in my estimation, no Christian should ever have a heart attack. Not if they truly believe. But that brings up this. I know that there are Christians out there that do not truly believe. They believe in Christ, yes. They have a hard time believing in anything else. They have a hard time believing in angels, in the intervention of angels. They have a hard time believing in supernatural involvements, miracles. They have a hard time believing in those things. They'd like to see them, yes, but they have a hard time believing in them, right? Very difficult time believing in them. So that when they do see them, if they did not believe in it, it can disturb them greatly. Just like us. If God had not given us revelation, we too would fall apart at the seams, not having a clue as to why things are happening the way they're happening, right? We're progressing. A little bit ago, war was being planned. Some assaults were about to take place. Something stopped the assault. As soon as the green light came for the assault, the earth took a turn. When the earth took a turn, people also took a turn. In the last 4 days, weird things have been happening. Weird things. The news about crime has been weird. It's been very odd. It's also been quite numerous, right? I personally believe that's a warning shot across the bow, a foreshadowing of what could be if we enter into any arena of murder. If we begin to murder, grace and mercy we're not going to have like we did. We survive by grace and mercy. We cannot survive without it. We can't. Man is but an infant. And we don't know as much as we thought we did. Just an infant. Well, tonight's going to be an interesting subject. By the way, tonight's topic is, somebody want to say it? Anybody? Nobody? It's a very odd topic. You guys didn't see the homepage? Anybody see the homepage? Strange Lifeforms. That's our topic for tonight. I'll jump right into it right after this break here at the Council of Time. All right. Let me get you guys on. There we go. Okay, everybody. Let's get into this topic, shall we? It may be a bit short tonight. If you guys forgive me if it's like really short. I have to see if something is as potent as I believe it is, because if it is, well, some preparations need to be implemented. Anyway, we live on a planet, right? This planet, Earth, in which all life forms are perfectly suited to this planet, right? All life forms are, from the birds to the mammals to the fish to the insects. They're all perfectly suited. They can hang out in all types of weather. You know, the strangest thing is when you have temperatures at 22 degrees and you go outside and you see deer, right, walking around as though there's no big deal. No big deal, right? And they're looking for food, doing their thing, not bothered by anything. Or you see other animals doing similar things. Frogs, which can literally freeze, which unthaw themselves. Other frogs, which are depleted of all water in their system, and they look like a dead husk, though when it rains, they puff back up again, come back to life, and start doing their thing again. Some fish are the same way. Some fish, when they dry out, they look dead. They're flat. I mean, when I say flat, I mean flat. But upon receiving water again, everything is revived inside. Animals are perfectly suited to this planet. They don't need our help. They don't. Despite mankind's willingfulness to take control of the animal kingdom, they have done a poor job, right? Because every time they intervene, they end up causing animals to go extinct. Animals take care of themselves. They've had no supervisor. Yet, species come back, right? If species are being discovered every single day, which means we did not see them for all these years, and all of a sudden we find them, a wondrous thing. So without humanity, the animal kingdom, right, all the kingdoms of life forms are fine. Trees, for example. Trees don't need humanity. When trees begin to dry up, when it gets real dry, and they have a hard time surviving, trees can emit a substance into the atmosphere, and they can cause it to rain. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that? Trees collectively emit a substance, not one tree, but a bunch of trees do it all at the same time, right? all at the same time. And it's a known fact. They talk through their roots. That's a known fact. That they emit a substance into the atmosphere. They cause it to rain. Trees can cause it to rain. It's a known fact also, due to distresses of certain animals, trees can do the exact same thing. In other words, a tree can be healthy. It doesn't need water or anything else, but they can notice the distress of other animals, other birds, and they can do the exact same thing. An amazing thing. An amazing thing. There are certain animals that have an ability to vibrate entire continents. Did you know that? If their population shrinks to a certain level, all of them begin to set up and do this low frequency thing. They start to vibrate the earth, and they can actually alter the structure of an entire continent. Animals can do this. That's an amazing thing. An amazing thing. Animals are perfectly suited to live here on this earth. They are. Bugs, perfectly suited to survive, to live here on this earth. But also in the animal kingdom, animals eat other animals. Right? Dogs. You ever see a dog walking around? They have one leg dangling, but they're just as happy as can be. You ever see that? And dogs have innate, animals have innate abilities that will just blow your mind. Right? Blow your mind. They can eat just about anything on the earth because they don't have taste buds like we do. They have a lesser count of those taste buds, which means something that really stinks to us can smell great to a bird or a dog or something. Birds have even less than other creatures. So birds are capable of eating just about anything based on what type of bird they are. They find their specific food groups all over the earth, right? They migrate halfway across the earth for the sake of their young. Insects do the same thing. How can a butterfly fly around the earth and actually be successful at that? Butterflies are lightweight. They can be tossed and blown all over the place. Ants migrate, right, in a very weird way. You know, the queen ant can fly up to the upper parts of the atmosphere with a male clinging to it. And wherever she lands, she can start a colony. Way up there in the atmosphere where it's freezing, where nothing can survive. And they travel all the way around the earth and land in places where they can start colonies. Right? And not only that, but all animals are critical to the continued development and life of Earth itself. So all animal species are tied to another. Some of the most vicious and cruel animals. They're only vicious and cruel because that's the way we observe them. They play very important roles. I don't like spiders. I don't like spiders. Spiders are one of the most important insects on the face of the earth, right? One of the most important. And all those little critters and bugs keep you alive. They do. In fact, you'd be dead if you had not been bitten by certain types of insects thus far. They boost your immune system. I find those things to be extraordinary, right? That all of us would be dead if we had no contact with certain insects. Certainly spiders. All of us have been bit by a spider. All of us have. But it was necessary. Right? Your body utilizes that venom for very important things inside the body. If that weren't the case, right, if you didn't consume them or have that toxins in your system, you would have died by now. Animals are perfectly suited. I know it's harsh to look at the reality of animals when for example, when a lion goes up and he goes and gets one of his prey. It looks cruel, right? Here's what you don't know. Do you not know that when an animal, a prey animal, is in high distress, they don't feel anything? Do you know that? They feel nothing. So imagine a lion biting into its prey. You think the prey is just in suffering. They're not suffering. They're not suffering. They don't feel a thing. They simply go into a certain state where their nerves are numbed, totally numbed, and they simply fall asleep, right? Their distress leaves and everything else. They don't feel things the way we do. Dogs they don't have a lot of nerves in their legs like we do, right? So for a dog to break its leg, it may be normally when it breaks its leg or is injured, like that's more of a shock than anything else. It's more of a jolt to the system saying, I have no use of this anymore, right? And it is mentally disturbing to the animal, right? Mentally disturbing. It's an amazing thing. Somebody says, I hear prey screaming. Yes, because it's mentally disturbing. There is a specific, the neurological system gives feedback when anything feels pain versus when something is in mental distress, right? The body lights up. Anybody's body lights up when you feel pain. If anybody out there had a toothache, your whole body lights up. All of your nerves and everything else go haywire. But when an animal goes through this, something different happens. There's no response from the center where the actual injury or wound or whatever the case is, that is, right? It's more of a mental shock to the creature. They have, just like a dog has powerful antibiotics in its saliva, just like a cat has powerful antibiotics in its saliva, better than anything we can produce, right? So they have a mechanism within themselves, and they don't go through some of the harsh things that we think they do. Here's the problem. As a human being, we relate everything to us. We're so arrogant that we believe everything is like us. We are not the creature suited to this planet. We're not. But let me not get there yet. So animals are perfectly suited to be here. Perfectly. You see them all year round, despite the temperature. They're quite resilient in their survival tactics and techniques. They have something called instinct. That looks sometimes, for some species, like intelligence. But they have something called instinct. Instinct. Does anybody think God is a cruel God? Anybody? When I was small, I used to see animals suffer. That's what I thought I saw, right? I used to see them suffer. And it was very disheartening to see an animal suffer. For me, it was. And I wondered one day, because it built up, and I said, how can the Father allow animals to go through such torment day in and day out? That's torment. Why would he do that? So I became nosy. And when I went beyond all the textbooks, right, all that jargon and everything else, and you get down to the real experiments and the real findings, in laboratories they have under tests, control tests, you can view some incredible things. Incredible. And what you interpret as pain for an animal is not pain. It's not. It's almost like a human being goes through shock. Right? Shock, when a person goes through shock, they're not feeling pain. They're in shock. They cannot make sense of the situation. It's exactly like if you don't see your own wound. You don't feel the pain from it. One time I was injured badly. I did not see the wound. I functioned for about 6 hours. And I began to feel a little lightheaded, right? Now, because of how the blood was leaving my system, nobody else could see it either. But upon changing my boots, I knew I was injured badly. My boot was full of blood, both of them, right? And I started feeling lightheaded. When I saw the wound, that's when the pain hit. I had no pain. I had zero pain before I saw the wound. And I always look back to that saying, what's happening here? What is that all about? You know, why do I identify the wound and then you start feeling the pain? But for 6 hours, I felt nothing. Not a thing, and it was a bad wound. Right? So because I went through that, and it was not adrenaline, because we were sitting there a couple of times just eating sea rats, just talking to each other, right? Just shooting the breeze. And there were other times I was walking around during that 6 hours checking on things and I felt no pain. Near the end of the day, when I went to go change my boots and socks, that's when I found out I was in trouble. That's when the pain hit. I was in no pain prior to that. It's almost like when you're sleeping, right? When you're sleeping, and you're not really in REM sleep, you're just sleeping, right? You don't really notice your pain. But when you're fully awake, it's like something comes back to you. Your nervous system kicks in to a specific level, and you begin to feel everything and anything that could ever be wrong with your body. And the pain returns, right? Anybody ever have an abscess or hurt tooth or something like that, and you forgot about it, and you were sleeping, but you forgot about it, but when you came to your senses, the pain came back to you, right? Strange thing. And we know that people take placebos, and they have no pain. There have been cases, and these are, you have to go research these. I would encourage all of you to research it. Do you not know that they have performed surgery with nothing? The person thought they were going under, but the person was not put under. The person was not given a local anesthesia, right? Some sort of anesthesia, something to take that pain away. They were given, what was it, salt water or sugar water. And they went through the surgery without feeling a thing, only feeling pressure. How is that possible? How is it possible to do surgery on a person, right, that cannot take pain? You tell them they're being numbed, but in reality, they're not being numbed. They just believe that they're being numbed. And then the surgery is performed. The person recovers nicely. Then about a year later, you tell them, you know, you weren't really numbed, right? They found out something to you. It's not good to tell a person they've had a placebo. Do you know why? There have been some findings behind that. If a person goes through any surgery, anything like that, and they've been given a placebo to believe that their pain was numbed or something like that, right? It's good for them to continue to believe that they were numbed, because they have told people that you know, they were given salt water and things like that. You know what happened? The person started having nightmares, and they began to feel the pain in their dreams and nightmares. So in essence, their brain recreated the pain. They know the mechanism behind it. They know exactly why it works. It works because humanity is the strangest life form on this planet. Humanity is the one not suited naturally to be here on the planet. Every day that we live our lives, we improvise to live. Do you know that? We're not naturally suited to be here. All the other animals are. We are not. We're not naturally suited to be here. We don't have natural coats of fur to keep us warm, or to keep us cool. We don't have that. We have to improvise. We have to invent things, right? It's required of us to use our intellect to survive. But we are the strangest life form on this planet. Everything else is not. Now that brings us to the subject people don't like to talk about, right? People get mad at me, but I have to continue to say this, right? I'm going to be accountable to the Father anyway. A lot of people get upset when you say, how dare he say that my favorite dog is just a dog? Well, because it is just a dog. The spirit of an animal is of the earth. Nothing can destroy the spirit of an animal. It's of the earth. You determine the spirit of that animal. It's a compliment to you, to its owner. Have you ever seen a dog change behaviors based upon the owners? There have been cases where dogs did not recognize the first owner. They are connected to the one who oversees them. Why? God made all life obedient to mankind. He did. The only thing in the way is evil, sin that comes from us. So when we are in that state of confusion, then everything around us is going to be in that same state. When a person is whole again, when they're whole, when they become a shepherd again, all life around them changes, even plant life. I'll tell you a secret. This is a known fact. And many of you probably have this too, but you did not pay attention. You didn't pay attention, but I want you to start paying attention. Those of you who are full of compassion. And when I say full of compassion, here's what I mean. No matter how angry you get, you will not harm another human being. It is not in you to do that. In fact, the ones I'm talking to are the saddest people, right? The saddest people. And anything, listen to me carefully, when you have entered into conversations or things that could have hurt somebody else, you did so trying to fit in. It was not in your heart, which means you were acting. It wasn't in your heart. Now, I'm talking to those people. Have you noticed that if you have a bush or a tree outside of the window where you sleep, that tree points towards your room, your window? Have you noticed that? Anybody? Never plant a bush below your window. It will come up to the window fast. It will. It's like it makes an effort to get to you. Trees will twist in odd ways to grow towards your window. Have you noticed that? It can be shocking for some people when you do take notice, because you'll be like, no way. That's what you'll say is no way. No way, no way, no way. Right? But you'll catch on. Because life is not quite like everybody described. Life is far more intuitive. Back to your pets. A lot of people think that their animals are individual, unique, animals with identity, things of that nature. An animal is a compliment to you. It's a compliment to you. So the spirit of an animal is in the flesh. Here's where I got that from. The Bible. The spirit of you is of the Almighty. The spirit of an animal is in the flesh. The spirit of a tree is in the tree, is in the flesh. The spirit of a fish is in the flesh. That's why they operate by instinct. Do they have intelligence? Yes. But they operate by instinct. Do they have compassion and love? They are a complement. You're the ones God put love in. Animals complement what you have in you, which is why you can also run across some devil dogs. You go up to a person who is evil, that pet is going to express evil type behaviors. Why? It complements the owner. So what does that mean when the pet dies? The body of the pet dies. The spirit of that pet, the instinct, right, is of the earth. It's impossible that it dies. So that means that same animal can be recreated over and over and over again. That's up to you. This is hard for people to accept, because it's also hard for people to accept that God gave you dominion over the earth. He gave you dominion over all the animals, all the birds, all the fish, everything. He gave you dominion. Yeah, you have dominion. You still have dominion. It's just that People don't exercise it as intended because they don't believe it. That pet you have at home is quite revealing. Why do I say that? Instinctively, they predict your behaviors. They don't have to see you in the room. They don't have to know that you're in the room to know what your needs are. They begin to share. Why? Because you're always talking to them, not with your mouth. The spirit of an animal is in the flesh. Your spirit's of the Most High. You speak by way of your spirit a lot. And animals are perceptive to that because God gave you dominion. See, in this talk, you cannot separate God from these natural things of the earth, of which most people do. That's when they separate the Lord from what's happening. But let me give you a small warning. That can also be perverted. Do not ever put an animal before another human being. I say that with heaviness and with all conviction. Don't do that. Don't do that. Which brings up a curious question, though. Satan, in the book of Genesis, Satan and his fallen angels, they corrupted the animals also on the earth. They corrupted them. They did. They corrupted them. And the animals of the earth were corrupted. How so, you may ask? Well, see, there's a time in Genesis when God clearly stated what an animal would eat for meat, and it was not each other. When sin came into the world, when Satan hijacked your dominion, when he convinced people to let go of their own dominion and to give up all of what God gave them charge over, they gave that up to chance. They gave up their dominion. Right? Which also means you can have it back at any time, but most people just give it up. They don't believe in it, so they just give it up. And they believe in chance. Whenever you believe in chance, then you've actually given Satan permission to take over. You do realize that, right? Because your father told you time and time again, stop believing in chance. Know that the Lord is present. Stop believing in chance. But every time we do believe in chance, then we're allowing anything else to take dominion. We're surrendering our dominion to something else. And we already know what's here. Right? Just a side note. A side note. But again, the spirit of an animal is in the flesh. So when an animal dies, could you have that same animal back with the same characteristics? Yes, you can. You most certainly can. It doesn't have to be the same dog breed, the same horse breed, but you can have that same animal back. They don't go anywhere. No more than a tree or a fish, right? It's going to be a great loss to the earth or not. They come back because they're of the earth. Your body is of the earth. Your spirit is from the Most High, but your body is of the earth. How does that work? Adam and Eve were created from the elements of the earth. That's why all the elements of the earth are in you. You know that, right? All the elements of earth are inside of you. When you die, your body will go back to the earth. But your spirit goes to the Most High. Your spirit is different. You're the one that came last. Human beings came last. Everything else was suited for this world but human beings. Human beings are the strangers of this earth. They are. Made in the image and likeness of the Creator. Is a dog made in the image and likeness of the Creator? I don't think so. What about a bug? I don't think so. We are made in the image and likeness of the Creator. Now, if you can take this hint, you will have solved something. There are many types of angels. God created the life forms on this planet. You are many creators. All of you are. Right? You create based on a pattern that's kind of built into you. That's why people, when they sit down and first start drawing people, they draw the same person. When they draw a car, they draw the same car. Their interpretation of things it's after a pattern built into them. God made things based upon himself. Patterns. The same patterns over and over again. So from the smallest things, you can understand the largest things. And from the largest things, you can understand the smallest things. That goes for insects and fish and birds and everything else. In the Bible, you start to read about God's angels and some of those things that are up in the heavens, they don't quite look right. You're not going to tell me that something with 6 wings with eyes all around it looks beautiful. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that the 4 living creatures were ever called attractive. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. It's some real ugly fish in the ocean, but they're God's creation. We call them ugly because we base beauty based off our looks and what's pleasing to us. Arrogance. Arrogance. What's nasty to us is surely attractive to other species on this earth. But to our Father, after he created all things, he said it was good. He didn't say it was bad. So in truth, we call bad what God called good all the time. Because we don't like it. Isn't that true? We don't like it, so guess what we say? That's ugly. Oh, that stinks. Some of the smelliest things on this earth have a sweet, sweet smell to life forms of this earth. But all of it suited to be here. Self-sustaining. We are the only one. For those that come into this world truly naked. We are truly naked. Right? We have to improvise. We have to utilize the intellect God gave us. We're also the only ones that communicate the way we do. Nothing else has the qualities we have. Because God gave us dominion. He gave us dominion. But we do have an ability to speak to everything else, don't we? That we do. There's a mystery to emotions. Great mystery. And if you begin to look at emotions from a spiritual standpoint, you'll realize something. God gave us a set of emotions that goes along with who we are. He did not give us all the emotions that man has named. Sin produced a great number of emotions. Corruption produced a great number of emotions. Without sin, you would not have specific emotions. So when you express sinful emotions, something else takes place in your life. Should you ever stop acting, agreeing with, or producing those sinful emotions, your life would be altered instantly. I know this goes against what you've learned in high school. Because not knowing, all too often we defend academia even in the face of a spiritual truth. And this is something you have to see for yourself. Observe, see the truth of it. God gave you eyes to see the truth of many things. But it all boils down to whose report are you going to believe, your father's or men? Because men don't necessarily agree with the Father, do they? Your comfort is with the knowledge of men. And all the knowledge of men is not bad, right? Because some of it is sound. Some of it is born from arrogance and pride. We all know that. You being the odd creature on this earth were given instructions on how to live, survive, and what your function was on the earth. Isn't that right? You're being given abilities so that you can interpret and hear and watch so that you can apply and become a steward over what God made you a steward over. Life on earth does not govern you. You govern it. You govern that. So back to your dogs. You can't lose them. The earth complements mankind, which is why, as the iniquity of man increases on the earth responds with a lot of birth pains, with upheaval. You know what it says in the Bible? That the earth is cursed because of mankind. The earth is cursed because of sin, because man still agrees to keep sin. Consequently, your households also carry that same thing. If you agree with sin, your household, you're going to carry the curse of that agreement. So how do you break that curse? Stop agreeing with sin. Now listen, to agree with sin is to willfully practice it. Willingly. That means you can find yourself in a sinful situation, but you stood against it. You don't want to be there, so the Lord gave you a remedy. You know what he said? He'll make a way of escape. If you find yourself caught in sin, the Lord will always make a way of escape so you can get out of it. Now, why would he ever do that? Because inadvertently, before you acquired your wisdom, he knew that you'd find yourself in certain situations. You are the strange one here on this earth. Even of the other life forms that people see, right? Stuff you've heard about. They're more suited to be here than we are. You know, that brings up something else, that you are placed here as a type of royalty over the planet, not suited to being here, but being put in charge over the earth. That dominion has not left you. You just don't utilize it. Can I give you guys an example? You know, if I witness of myself, that witness is no good. It really isn't. I would so love for anybody else to tell you this, but I've never met an animal that did not like me. I've not met a child that did not like me. I know why. Within me is I have no desire to harm another human being. None. Even though I have no desire to harm another human being. None. And children, right, are the point point of life. They're not the burden of life, they are the point of life. Children are used to something different. And if you're one of those who can remember your childhood like I can remember before I could walk, I can remember years. I already told you I miss my family because I remember conversations they had before I could walk. Though I have a big gap in my memory from, the age of 6 onward, but I can remember the days before I could walk, conversations, tears, arguments. I can remember it all. Most importantly, I can remember the comprehension. Your child understands everything you're saying. They're just not interested half the time. But they understand everything you're saying. Everything. Please don't get around a child and think that they don't comprehend what you're saying, because they do. They won't always act on that. But they truly understand what you're talking about. But we are the strange life forms here. God equipped us with intellect, ingenuity, eyes to see, ears to hear. He equipped us with everything necessary to live on this earth. We do live very different from all the other animals on the earth. We do. Because we're made in the image and likeness of the Creator. We too like to create. We too like pleasant things. We do. And a lot of people have recognized things in nature as being comfortable to them. They subdue it. They use it. But we are the strange life forms here on this earth. Everything else is normal. We're the abnormals. But we're also the ones who have dominion over the earth. Why would that subject even be important? Because it demonstrates our truth. And unavoidable. This is something that cannot be ignored. Everything else is suited for this earth, and if you look at creation, you'll see it. But mankind was not put here for his or her own reason, but for a very specific reason. We have a responsibility over this earth. Now, because God gave you dominion, you know what that means? You cannot have dominion without authority. An ambassador to a nation goes into another nation and he's authorized to do certain things. It's up to him whether he enacts that or not. All too often, ambassadors do not utilize their full authority. They don't do that. That also means God has given you an ambassadorship in his stead right here on this earth. But many people do not utilize their authorities God has given them. They've been convinced into settling for what the earth can yield to them. That's not how God set you up. And we have Christ who has put us back in position with the Father. There's nothing holding you back. Hear me, there's nothing holding you back. That's what you have to see. You're not the victim in this whole story. No, you're the point. The angels are not the point. You are. The demons are not the point. You are. You are. You're the reason for the earth. You are. Isn't that a very different way to look at things? How does one go about to begin to walk in that authority? You have to believe first, but not believe by way of your mind, but you have to believe by way of your soul. Which means in the Word of God is a narrative. You have to decide whether you accept it or not. These are not the days to continue to ponder. It's time for you to make a choice. And after you make that choice, walk by it. Don't apologize for it. You walk by it. It is your choice. To choose to walk by authority, to exercise that authority, is simply to realize your Father has put you here. No mistakes were made. You've been fearfully and wonderfully made. That you have a high purpose on the earth. You need not establish one yourselves. You already have a purpose on this earth. And simply begin to live by those standards the Father gave you. Because it's almost like the body of Christ right now is stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, right? That makes no sense. That was a pun. That was an interesting pun. I didn't even mean to do that. Somebody out there has to use that one day. That was funny. Stepping over dollars to get to pennies, and that makes no sense. That's my humor. I'll get better at that. But you guys get the point, right? You're not the victims here on this earth. You've simply been talked into not walking in the authority or the capacity that God has laid out before you. God equipped you, or you would not be here. You wouldn't be able to survive if God did not equip you. Now, when you're angry, here it is, because some of you say, well, I just can't muster the energy. Why is it that when you're angered, all of a sudden everything is possible through anger? Come on now, think about that. Think about it. When you're angry, you could be just dead tired. You can't do anything. You're hopeless. You see no way out. Then you get a phone call and someone infuriates you on the phone. All of a sudden you jump up on your feet. The feet they weren't working a few minutes ago. But in your anger, listen to me closely, in your anger, you jump up, you begin to talk faster. You're fully aware, you're awake, you're ready to pounce on something, and nothing better not touch you while you're in that mode, right? Why are you so charged up with that anger? You were just tired, depressed, didn't want to go another moment, but as soon as you get angry, you change. One of you guys said that Sister Heidi was talking about epigenetics on Pastor Paul's show before I got there. That's exactly what that is. That's what demons know that you don't. They know about epigenetics. They know that by way of your intent, by way of what you accept, you begin to do. And when you begin to do things, your entire body is transformed to complement your desire. Don't you know that? Whatever your desire is, your body will conform to it. Now, some of you have been paying attention, right? When I was small, don't laugh, do not laugh, but I was knock-kneed when I was small. They thought I needed braces. They did. They're like, you're going to have to wear braces because your knees are tight. It was bad, too, because I would run and knock my knees so hard my leg would give out, and down I went. But what happened was, just out of the blue, I began to walk differently. I said, I'm going to walk like this and straight back, because I used to see other people walk. They weren't walking like I walked. And so I altered that. Within a year's time, my legs were perfectly straight. Without braces. No braces. Well, that's not the only thing. It's not the only thing. There were things I had to be equipped with. And I'm telling you, the body altered to meet the standard. You ever need some alteration? And it's not that you have to believe in it, you simply need it. And so you become focused on it. You're saying, I'm going to have that. So you start, your posture may change so that you can achieve it, whatever the case is. And after about a year, you have it. Everything is altered. I'm telling you, that's epigenetics. See, they found out with epigenetics that you can actually think a thing, and your body will start to alter gene expression. Without altering, it does not alter the underlying DNA, it alters gene expression. And what that means is the packing and unpacking of your DNA is a very important process, right? It determines what you look like, how big or small your nose is, what your smile is, all sorts of things. It will determine that. There's something called, well, I'm not going to get into that, but epigenetics. It's just that. It's the same way a demonic entity can jump into a person that person physically distorts right before everybody's eyes. You have that same ability based upon epigenetics and discovery. Something they discovered that causes the foundation of the Word of God to be so incredibly real, because in the Bible it says, as a man thinketh, so is he. Whatever you have accepted, that's what your body carries out. If you accept your sickness, listen to me, if you accept your sickness, and that's what the world does, if you accept it, your body will continue to conform to it. But I'm going to go back to the placebos. When somebody is given a placebo, they no longer accept their sickness. They accept the healing. They think the medicine, the fake medicine, is going to do its job. They're going to be back to normal. So they accept the healing. They're not denying it anymore. But if you're not given anything, you deny the healing and accept the sickness. Because every time you say, I don't think that's going to work for me, then you are fully accepting the sickness. And by your DNA is going to make you more adept to having that condition. That can change. It can change. As a man thinketh, so is he. I'm telling you, the Father equipped us so greatly. So great. Epigenetics is a very real thing. It's all just tied to your faith. You have the authority. I personally have been poisoned, right? I've had overdoses, radiation. I've been exposed to chemicals, HG nerve agent. I've had neuropathy for a long time. It's almost gone. Who has neuropathy that just goes away? I've had a collapsed lung that somehow repaired itself. How does that happen? Because I do not accept the sicknesses doctors say that you have. There was a time when I came back one time, guys, I was messed up for 2 years of my life. My entire family saw it. And I was going downhill quickly. But let me tell you why. When I did come back, it was like my mind was fractured. I was believing the symptoms. In fact, let me clue you in on this. You don't have to admit this or deny this, but let me clue you in on this. Sometimes we want the symptoms. Sometimes we want the pity. Sometimes you're not willing to part from the sickness because of what you get in return. Sometimes that happens. You ever meet a person, all they talk about is their medication and their physical, their problems? That makes them relevant to everybody else when people do that. And they found out that they can be active in conversation with that kind, and people will hear them, right, with an ear of sympathy if they continue to talk about that one specific subject. These are normally people, when they try to talk about their own interest, people said, I don't have time for that. Or they were rejected when they talked about the things they really liked. And so one day they found out they can get sympathy out of people by explaining or adopting some sort of condition. And so they keep, right, in order to keep the relationships the same, in order for them to get people to talk to them, they embrace their frailties. Sometimes that happens. There are lots of people out there like that right now. They're always talking about what's going wrong with them because they believe it keeps them relevant. It's the only way they can engage with people. The truth is, people like that, they love other people, but they feel that no one is interested in what they're interested in. So they found something where they can continue to engage with just about anybody and have sympathy for their issue. If you know someone like that, you have to help them with that. When I meet people like that and all they do is talk about their sicknesses, let them know quickly, I cannot talk to you about your medicine or your condition, but I can talk to you. But if you bring up your medicine or conditions, I will not entertain that conversation. Do that. But I'll hear the person, but I will not talk to them when they begin to amplify their conditions and medications and all that. I won't talk to them. And what that does is it causes a person to become themselves again. Then they begin to talk to you as they normally would, and they're not talking about their ailments and the 9,000 medications they have to take. When that happens, then it clicks in their minds, hey, I'm accepted for who I am. What I'm telling you right now is you have the power to alter that in somebody's life simply by showing them that, yes, you will listen to them, but you won't accept any facade. So accept the person for who the person is, not for who they can be. Accept the person for who they are. And refuse to listen to what they believe makes them relevant, which is to elicit the sympathy of somebody else through misery. Don't amplify that. Don't contribute to that. I'm not going to contribute to that. I appreciate the person for who they are, not for who they can be, but for who they are. Love the people for who they are, not for who they can be. Love the people for who they are. Love the person in front of you. Try not to look at a person for who they can be. Don't look at a person like that. See who's right in front of you and embrace that person. We live in a very phony society that way. We embrace people all the time for who they project themselves to be, knowing it's not the real person. We know that person is underneath that thick shell that they don't want to show anybody. When in fact, that's the person of worth. Not the facade. Not the presentation. But the person. They're the important thing. Okay, I'm going to take a break. I'll be right back in just a few minutes right here at the Council of Time. I have a question for you guys. If I broke my arm and I go into a hospital and the doctor says, well, you broke your arm, what should my response be? Anybody? Do I say, no, I didn't break my arm, and my arm is dangling down? Is that what I say? Absolutely not. We're not here to be in denial, right? So here it is. If I break my arm, I go into a hospital and a doctor says, you broke your arm. I'll say, yep. But internally, right? I'm not going to tell a lie and say my arm is not broken. No. In fact, that's more like doctors, because they tell me, right, things that have happened in the body that are to be healed. I don't deny, because if you go in there with some sort, if a doctor tells you that you have cancer, you don't step into the arena of untruth and say, no, I don't. That's denial. You don't do that. You listen, you'll say, if you can verify, you say, okay, right? But you have to know in your heart, well, I'm not going to stay that way. See how different that is? Because your Father is a healer, correct? Or we're not here to deny that the Father heals. To deny that the Father heals is to deny that you've been broken or sick in the first place. We're not here to walk around, right, and step into the arena of untruth, denying everything. No. No, you acknowledge the truth always, but have an understanding. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay broken. You don't have to stay sick. I do it all the time. I've been told plenty of times I wouldn't recover. I just said, that's your opinion. Because I know in my heart I will recover. I'm not here for me. And there's the big thing. Let me ask you guys something. What are you here for? You're the strangest life form on the planet. This is clearly not your home. What are you here for? What are you here for? Because see, I'll tell you a way you won't be healed. Why would God heal a person who will simply be healed and do everything for themselves yet again? There's no real motivation of love in that. I know for a fact I'm not here for me. I'm here for everybody but me. And there are tasks to be performed for other people, not for me. I'm not here to swell up my life and spend all my everything on me. I'm not here for that. I'm here to utilize every single ability within myself for the sake of somebody else. That's why I'm here. You know what's so funny? Satan can never go against that. He can't do anything with that. But if you're living for yourself, you're going to end up with the same conclusion. I don't deserve it. I'm not worth it. I'm this. We already know that. And why would God heal a person who's only going to magnify their own lives? There's no purpose in that. So I'll ask you again. Gently. Right? Why are you here? Why are you here? It's one of those questions. Often people, they don't want to look to that. Face it. Don't ignore things. Don't step into the arena of untruth. Occupy truth. There's a lot to be done. Didn't Jesus say, Didn't he say the harvest is ready, but the laborers are few? Therefore, pray to the Lord of the harvest. Didn't he say that? Of course he did. If you were to set your heart to labor for your fellow man, if you were to do that, the Lord would not withhold healing from you. He wouldn't. But if we're selfish, if we're going to end up right back at square one, why would God heal us to go backward in life? God does not do a vain thing. See, a lot of people want to be healed, but here's what they have not concluded because they didn't go through the whole process. If you were to heal them, they would simply end up right back where they are right now. They would. I hear people all the time, and I've heard them say, if I could ever get back to the way I was, healthy, this, that, and the other, I would go out and just enjoy myself. And that's why you're not going back to the way you were. That's why you're not going to be healed. Because if God were to heal you in that mindset, you would be condemned. You would be lost. There'd be no salvation for you. Do you really think your Father is going to risk you not having salvation? Nope. And you can't trick him either. You can't by your mouth say, Lord, I'm going to serve you if you heal me. He already knows the end result. You. He knows exactly what you're going to do. So the real issue here is you have to make up your mind. And anybody who's going to serve their fellow man does not wait for healing. They begin right there where they are without excuses. If you're a person who says, I can't serve the Lord because I have to be healthy first or I have to do this first, then guess what? You're not going to serve him when you get that thing you're asking for. Anybody who serves the Lord and does so in truth would do it at their own expense. They'll do it if it costs them their life or anything else. So that means they're going to start where they are and serve the Lord. In their state they're in now, they're not going to wait for anything. They're going to do the right thing right now. Now that person is going to be fully restored. I know that one. I don't even have to have faith in that. I know that. But to the person who says, well, I need this first and that first, and if the Lord does this, then I can go and do that, you're not going to move. The Lord has already tried you in that area. And when he did restore you a little bit, you blew it. And when he did give you the supplies, you blew it. And when he did do this, that, and the other, you blew it. He already knows that. He knows it. And if you recall in your life, he tried you in those areas, and you blew it. The point is this. You already know with your own eyes, your experience and everything else, that somehow all the animals of the earth are made for this earth but you. You're the oddball here, which means this is not your home. You're passers-by. This is not your paradise, right? So because of that, you already know you're not going to stay here. You're here for a purpose. And that purpose, Jesus has already defined. With the commandment of Christ to love your neighbor as yourself. With him saying there's no greater love than one lay down his life for his friends. We know what the cause is. We just have to agree to do it. Walk in that dominion and authority the Lord has put you in. That's yours. You wouldn't exist without authority. You'd be dead already. You wouldn't be able to survive. But our minds cannot be warped. We have to be sober, standing in truth, not giving excuses as to why we can't conform, why we can't do this, that, and the other. Because when you're serious, you're not going to wait for anything. You're going to start where you are. If you had a broken leg and your favorite person in the whole world was sick and you had a heart to help them, You're not going to care if your leg is broken. You will improvise and get to that sick person. Do you know that? You'd hurt yourself further to get to that person. Whoever does that, they can look for restoration. You know why? Because they were willing to do the right thing despite their own status. That's key to true healing. Healing is not some external thing. God doesn't heal you on the outside and leave the inside broken. God will heal you from the inside out. He'll make you whole again. But that's based on the truth of you. Not your concepts, but the truth of you. And the truth of you is what you're doing right now. You want healing in your life, but the healing is top priority, even over you risking everything to help somebody else. For the people who have been healed, healing was not the priority. The people were the priority. Those who were healed had a heart for people when they were broken. They agreed to help people in their brokenness. You're broken for a purpose. You're not stuck. You're presented with an opportunity that is rare and unique. Your long durational problems, they're an opportunity and you can't see it. When your heart is turned toward your fellow man, in that same day, you're going to use what you have for your fellow man. You're not going to talk about healing. You're going to talk about what you can do for your brother, for your fellow man. And in that day, you'll be healed, because then your heart is right. All of us are broken. All of us are. And to those who put their fellow man first, you know that healing had come. But to those who put their healing first, you're still broken, seeking the healing. It's your choice. It's your choice. But I tell you now, by love, when you put your fellow man first, and your heart is in servitude towards others, in that moment, it's not a big deal if you're healed or not. You're going to utilize everything that's still working for the sake of your fellow man. And I'm telling you that your Father will equip you when you begin that work. Our Father works in truth, not in deals, certainly not in lies. And he does not do a vain thing. He's not going to heal us so we can go corrupt ourselves. He's not going to heal us so we can enjoy the rest of our lives and still ignore other people. All of us have problems. But if your personal problems stop you from loving somebody else, you're not sober. You're not. Because you're not seeing your fellow man with the eyes of the Lord. When you do see your fellow man with the eyes of the Lord, your fellow man will be the most important priority in your life. And so in your broken state, you'll take all what that's left over with you that is working, and you will utilize it to lift up your fellow man. That's what you'll do. My first healing took place that way. I was physically broken. And I said something within myself. Because I was going to pray for healing so I could do some things. You know what I said? No. Lord, in my present state, I'm going to serve you anyway. I didn't ask for a healing. I didn't ask for extra knowledge or anything else. I simply determined within myself that I was going to serve him broken. The way that I was broken, I was going to serve him anyway. And I went forward to do it. In that same hour, I was healed of something that shouldn't have been healed. And it's been all uphill from there. Those healing things that happen in my life so frequently, I just have to apply that to the rest of my life. Yes, that means we always have those areas we have not perfected. But when it comes to healing, no brokenness is going to stop me from serving my fellow man. Doesn't matter if I'm broken or not. It matters if people are fed. That's what matters. Some of you out there, you're no different than me. You won't touch a drop of food at the table until everybody else has something. That's just the way you are. You're always going to make sure that somebody else has something. You do not make the story about yourself. In fact, you don't even like the story about yourself. But you want to see people go forward and go higher. You want them to be successful. You want them to be prosperous. You want them to be healed. You take no thought of yourself. I'm not the only one. There are others out there like that. The one thing you know is healing always takes place when it shouldn't. And that you survive and get through this world by God's mercy. God has supernatural mercy upon your life because you're so merciful. I tell you, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he reap also. Walk forward in that truth. Become witnesses of what the Lord said he would do. He's faithful. We're the ones who are not so faithful all the time. God is always faithful. He'll always honor his word. He will never return void. We, however, we are strange sometimes. Double-minded to a degree. But in the time where we're going to see enough betrayal from this day forward happen in many governments. Let's not betray ourselves, nor deceive ourselves. That way all of us can be whole. That's your predestined point, is to be whole. Whole means healed, sober, restored. It's what your Father desires of you. Remember, the word says, I would that you prosper as your soul prospers. So if your soul is not prospering, there you have it. God's word is real. Approach it with sincerity. Make some choices finally, but make no excuses. Start where you are. Start with the addiction, with the problem. Dare to love your fellow man as Jesus commanded, and watch his word unfold in your life. Do it in truth. Don't do it to see what will happen. Do it in truth. Do it because you want to see your fellow man make it. I want to see people make it. Because Lord knows, he's already shown me a great many who will not make it. Folks, I'm not going to hold you. I'm going to say God bless all of you. You thought this was going to be about ETs or something, didn't you? No. No, of all the strange creatures on this world, we're the ones put here to govern everything else. We are. listen, we do have geo alarms going off all over the place. I want you guys to know that. All over the place, everywhere. I've not really seen it like this, so I'm going to have to interpret these results. I'm going to just prematurely say it's probably because of all the activity from the sun. Whatever's happening in the earth is not done yet, but it is very active. Very active. Also, this is very difficult to explain, so I'll say it like this. Mankind's mental state is degraded for certain types of people, which means the nature of crimes will shift. It'll seem like those who would do evil are a bit bolder in what they're doing. And we're in that season of betrayal. Hope you're buckled up. Because everything you trust in this world, by the time it's over, will have betrayed you. And you're about to see an example of how they betray each other. God bless you guys. I'm going to see you next time right here at the Council of Time. God bless.